Today's entrepreneur culture favors extroverts much more compared to introverts because business is all about people. Entrepreneurs, in particular, are expected to be an outspoken, bold, charismatic, and gregarious leader. An extrovert, basically? It doesn't matter where we go, there will always be an implicit cultural axiom that extroverts make better entrepreneurs. But what about introverts? Isn't it possible for them to become a successful entrepreneur? Not to mention, it is believed that in the extroverted business world, introverts have to survive. Thereupon, Elizabeth Winstead is ready to refute the statement in her article, Why Introverts Make Great Entrepreneurs.
A warm welcome to our lecturer, Mr. Walter, and all of my beloved classmates. I, Nazefah Binti extend a warm greeting to all of you to my presentation. My talk today will deal primarily with the article that I have chosen, which is Why Introverts Make Great Entrepreneurs. Why Introverts Make Great Entrepreneurs is an article published in the Wall Street Journal in August 24, 2015. This article was written by Elizabeth Bernstein, a reporter and columnist for the Wall Street Journal. In this article, Elizabeth explores leadership and personality in practice. The article initially appears to have the primary function of convincing the readers to accept the fact that introverted individuals can also make great entrepreneurs. Needless to say, the purpose was clearly and concisely stated and agreed with the title. In the article also, the writer seeks to debunk the myth that introverts make naturally good entrepreneurs by exploring 4 introvert qualities that can give entrepreneurs the edge, which is solitude, self-affirmation, listening skills, and rallies. The writer also gives an overview regarding actual traits and myths about introverts. Throughout my reading of this article, it became clear that the author's intended audiences to read this article are entrepreneurs, especially introverted entrepreneurs and businessmen or businesswomen. Based on my reading, it is apparent that the author favors introverts over extroverts. It is because, in the article, the author explained introverts' positive traits while contrasting them with extroverts' traits that considered as negative traits. With that being said, it can be inferred that the author uses a critical tone in addition to a positive and straightforward tone in her article. Apart from that, the article also displays informal tone throughout her article as she often uses contractions and short declarative sentences. Before I begin, let me explain the terms of entrepreneur, introvert, and extrovert. An entrepreneur refers to an individual who has identified a need in the marketplace and has come up with an innovative business idea to fill that need. They are someone who are willing to take on the many risks of implementing the idea and to also take on the role as leader of the company or organization. Now, let's look at the definitions of introvert and extrovert. I'm sure that we all have heard about this at least once in our life. So, what classifies a person to be introverts and extroverts? According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, an introvert refers to a person whose personality is characterized by introversion, a typically reserved or quiet person who tends to be introspective and enjoys spending time alone. Conversely, an extrovert refers to a person whose personality is characterized by extroversion, a typically gregarious and unreserved person who enjoys and seeks out social interaction. Moving on, what makes someone become an introvert? It is a question that many an exasperated extrovert has asked of their introverted friends or coworkers, and one that many introverts, including me, have occasionally asked themselves. Though it looks different in everyone, introverts have many of the same patterns of behavior. So, how do you know that you are or someone you know is an introvert? To begin with, a person who is an introvert is a careful thinker, as they tend to make calculated risks. In other words, they look before they leap. Next, introverts aren't a big fan of a small talk. They usually only speak when they have something to say or something useful to add to the conversation and not waste time or energy on unnecessary talks. However, they do enjoy an in-depth conversations about topics that interest them. Next, introverts are comfortable with independent thought and action. In addition, introverts need their solitude to balance out social time. Therefore, when an introvert feels overwhelmed by too much socializing, they often need a little quiet time and solitude to recharge. Some may need a lot, some may need, some may need much less, but the point remains the same. Solitude is crucial to an introvert's happiness and well-being. In addition, introverts usually have an active inner life, imagination, and strong inner strength. They basically live in the world of ideas. They create thousands of universes in their mind but keep them secret. They also have they also often have a steady and balanced presence even during conflicts or when things go wrong. On top of that, introverts are very observant. Not only that, they have a high capacity for active listening and making real deep connections with others based on their observations. Next, introverts are also willing to put other people and their vision in the spotlight. It is because introverts work for themselves, not for acknowledgement or gratitude. Last but not least, they also have a desire for and to develop a depth understanding or mastery over a topic. Pushing this further, let's take a closer look at the myths surrounding introverts. The first thing everybody must know about introverts is that they are not synonymous with shyness or antisociality. An introvert can be shy, but that isn't a given. When they are in a group, introverts can be very outgoing and engaging. Not only that, introverts are almost always mistaken for being antisocial. Antisocial and introvert may appear to be similar on the surface, yet they are not. Introverts are actually sociable, but only when they want to be. Next, although most people see a leader as someone with an outgoing disposition, introverts can also be bosses and leaders too. It is because some of their personality traits have the potential to make them successful leaders. Next, introverts may generally come across as someone who is always quiet and don't talk, but this does not imply that they don't like to talk. As I previously stated, introverts do not talk unless they have something to say, and if given opportunity to speak in a relaxed environment on a topic that is fascinating to them, they can actually talk for hours. It is also a misconception that introverts are nerds and bookworms. Despite the fact that the majority of them are bookworms, not all introverts are bookworms. Another common myth about introverts is that they are depressed. People, including introverts, often associate introversion with depression, mostly because of their inherent tendency to favor solitary activities. However, introversion and depression are not synonymous states of being. Anyone, regardless of personality, can be depressed. It could have been either me or you. Not only that, introverts are often labeled as aloof, arrogant, and stuck up since people find introverts unwilling to interact most of the time. But that is far from the truth. It's not that they are arrogant, but very selective when it comes to socializing. They are known as someone who carefully chooses whom he or she wants to interact with. With that being said, that is all of the misconception about introverts that is mentioned in the article. Before we get to the meat of the matter, I'd like to show you to a few excellent entrepreneurs who are introverts.
The first person is Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft. The second person is Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple. The third person is Larry Page, the co-founder of Google. The fourth person is Mark Zuckerberg, the co-founder of Facebook. The fifth person is Marissa Mayer, the current president and CEO of Yahoo. Lastly, Warren Buffett, the chairman and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway.
Now, I'd like to move on to the main part of presentation, which looks at the qualities or personality traits that make an introvert a great entrepreneur. Before doing so, try to imagine a great entrepreneur. What sort of leader do you see? Are the individuals you picture is this kind of person? Or this one? You're probably thinking that this is the sort of person who will become an excellent entrepreneur, right? It is common that people have a notion that extroverts are better entrepreneurs than introverts. Even a conventional wisdom says you need to be an extrovert to start a successful business. However, that is wrong for all sorts of reasons. Now, without wasting any more time, let's get started with the first trait that makes introverts particularly well suited to the entrepreneurship, which is introverts crave for solitude. According to the article, extroverts are people who are externally oriented. This implies that they possess things by discussing it with others. To put it another way, extroverts frequently find it simpler to comprehend and solve difficulties when they can talk through them, restate them in their own terms, or seek help from others. Not only that, they often have a hard time pondering over difficult questions such as how can I channel my target audience, how can I cut down on my company expenses. Whereas an introvert will be very comfortable to think on his own. Solitude allows introverts to recalibrate their minds and nervous systems, analyze their ideas, make decisions, choose priorities, recharge for socializing, and reconnect with their actual selves. They are much more comfortable of being alone and they don't lack creativity when they are alone. This can give introverts a leg up as they create a business strategy or come up with new ideas once the company is established. As stated by Elizabeth in the article, extroverts are the type of person who tend to use the approach where they try to throw the spaghetti at the wall and hope it to stick. Whilst introverts um, look for all the possible ways to make it stick in the least number of trials. In other words, an introvert will persist until they get a solution. Furthermore, introverts prefer to ponder about the current task or the future project before acting on an idea. This is useful for implementing a company strategy, tasks that need a high level of attention to detail, or coming up with new tactics once the venture is launched. Next, the sources suggested that another personality trait that makes an introvert a great entrepreneur is that they don't need external affirmation. This self-belief allows them to stay focused on their ventures. In contrast, the author asserted that extroverts often find themselves get infatuated by the feedback loop and external validation in the form of accolades and media attention. This is one of their disadvantages as this may serve as a deterrent for them. Introverts, on the other hand, can be more balanced. They usually rely on their own internal compass to determine whether they are making the right decision or performing well. Furthermore, introverts don't back down when they believe that their ideas are good, and they don't seek for other people to validate their position. While they do welcome external validation from others, they regard validation is not a crucial part of the process, nor does it define or distract them from their ultimate goal. In addition, extroverts have a clear idea of what is worthwhile to pursue and what should be left alone. To conclude, the ability to rely solely on themselves rather than on a team is a great quality for any entrepreneur. In the article, it is stated that introverts know how to listen and they are an excellent listener. These abilities, without a doubt, will be helpful in situations that involves partnership and sales. According to Elizabeth, extroverts talk a lot, which can lead them to forget to let other people to speak. This trait can be particularly detrimental to their relationship with consumers or clients. On the other hand, as I previously stated, introverts did not talk unless they have something to add. As a result, they are excellent listeners, observers, and synthesizers, which makes introverts better at comprehending the client's problem and displaying concern and empathy. Furthermore, introverts can make unanticipated connections because they are more focused on information input than output. They are also adept at connecting disparate dots. Besides, in any line of business, listening to your customers is crucial if you want to keep them satisfied. Admittedly, introverts may not be the best speakers, but they certainly are good listeners, and they often ask the right questions. Besides, in some situations, listening is just as good, if not better, than talking. Moreover, introverts don't seek the limelight. They prefer to have their work speak for them, and this can be an advantage if you are in sales or marketing. Finally, the last trait of introverts that make them particularly well suited to business is their ability to be realistic. As mentioned by Elizabeth, experts suggest that when someone focuses more on positive feedback, he or she may overlook or underestimate the value of negative criticism. In addition to this, extroverts tend to be more optimistic about many things. They are usually positive and full of energy, which make them tend to overlook the realities of the situation. On the other hand, introverts are more realistic. As I have mentioned before, introverts are a person who always think things through carefully and always look before leaping. In other words, they always consider each possibility and tend to be more careful. This may give the impression that they are pessimists. However, this kind of trait can help to prevent them from making a lot of hasty decisions. Elizabeth has stated that in 2009, Maya Tamir, the director of the Emotion and Self-Regulation Laboratory at Boston College and Hebrew University in Jerusalem, has conducted a study to observe the ways in which introverts and extroverts approach an thoughtful task. In that study, she just discovered that introverts prefer to maintain a neutral emotional state. It is because to them, happiness is an arousing emotion which can be distracting for introverts during tasks. Conversely, extroverts prefer to feel happy, up, and or enthusiastic, as well as to recall happy memories while approaching or completing their tasks. According to her findings also, introverts' happy space is a quieter space with less interruptions, and they won't have that overstimulations. These findings shows that introverts are less easily sidetracked by things that they might find pleasant. For example, they are less likely to be swayed by the number of followers they have on social media or a new app that appeals to them. This shows that introverts can attain their main goal far more easily than extroverts and dependable entrepreneurs. Moving on, throughout the article, it is obvious that the writer stands in a biased position as she favors the idea that introverts is the best entrepreneur compared to extroverts by constantly highlighting the good qualities of the introverts individual and compare it with the bad qualities of extrovert traits. In other words, The author takes the stances of introverts entrepreneur. To sum up, it is undeniable that being an introvert in business has some drawbacks, just like being an extrovert entrepreneur. For example, introverts tend to eschew networking. Extroverts, on the other hand, are natural networkers who know how to lead the team. Nevertheless, the crux of the matter is that the notion that introverts can be as successful entrepreneur as extroverts needs to be dispelled. That said, I'd like to emphasize that introverts do possess a set of attributes that extroverts lack, skills that enable them to be better prepared for the specific conditions on which the company's long-term success depends. Let me briefly restate these four introverts qualities that can give entrepreneurs the edge, which is they crave solitude, they don't require self-affirmation, they have excellent listening abilities, and they are realistic. It is worthy to acknowledge that the fact that just because they appear to be someone who did not like to talk and prefers to be alone doesn't make them any less capable than other people. Therefore, people should refrain from expecting every introvert to change and be more like extroverts. Perhaps this is the time for extroverts to try and be more like introverts instead. It's time to bring this presentation to close. Before that, I'd like to remind you that your personality is not a prison. It is neither a shackle or nor a restraint. It is not necessary to alter or change your personality. Whatever the case may be, your personality is a wonderful part of who you are. Rather than attempting to alter or change your personality, it would be better if you denote that energy toward learning and developing new talents that will assist you in achieving your objectives. Last but not least, thank you for staying with me all the way to the end of my presentation. I really appreciate it. To wrap up my presentation, I'd like to emphasize that contrary to popular belief, an introvert can be a great entrepreneur. I hope I was able to persuade you regarding this matter. Thank you very much. See you next time.